I've had a bit of time to think about what I was going to do for this episode of the podcast because obviously, as time goes on, especially when you're trying to do something to this depth, it's difficult not to go over the same subjects over and over again, and it's difficult not to repeat yourself when talking about certain subjects. So, some of the things, obviously, everything kind of correlates in one go, and if anything that is discussed on today's episode is distressing for you, please reach out to the services provided. Speak to a loved one, speak to a friend, family member, talk about it as much as you can. Be as open as you can. Obviously, it's easier said than done. But today's episode is about, I want to say forgiveness, but it seems like a bit of a too broad of a term for certain aspects. It's letting go of certain emotions, or at least slowly channeling them out. It's the idea that you you don't hold on to anger or pain as much as you do. You do not throw so much energy into negative emotions, especially if you're on a process in the process of healing. Now, I say this very loosely. It is easier said than done. Is it doable? It depends on who you ask. It depends on people's opinions on that matter itself. But I think for a lot of us, we are just looking for an answer, just looking for a sign, just looking for closure to put certain things in our lives to bed. And for me personally, you know, I won't go into great length of detail about it, but I've had a lot of anger which I've had to let go of, and it isn't easy. It isn't easy. You don't flip a switch and be like, I'm not going to be angry anymore. Like, circumstances and happenstances happen in such a way that you start to get a real perspective on certain things that are happening in your life, that you're like, I spent way too much energy and time throwing my emotions into this and refusing to let go of it. Almost becomes a part of you, almost becomes part of your soul. You make it your whole entire being, especially when it comes to things that are particularly traumatic or particularly hurtful or eventful. And it's hard. It is hard. And I think that for a lot of us, when it comes to certain things that we speak about or that we think about, really getting to that point where you admit to yourself that you have spent way too much energy on it, and then moving on, or trying to move on, trying to let go, forgive but never forget, allow trust but never fully trust, and in all aspects of your life, it is hard to really encapsulate on that and try and focus on the antithesis on how you are as a person and how you overcome these problematic issues or events that have caused you a great deal of pain in your life. It's not easy, and I'm not here to advise anyone on how they should go about doing this, or even if you want to go about doing this. It's about looking deep within yourself and asking yourself the questions that you refuse to ask yourself. Do I spend so much of my energy exhibiting this emotion that is causing me a great deal of pain or a great deal of angst or suffering? is it worth it? And to some people it is. Some people it gives them a drive. Some people it gives people that push to go, no, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to go about doing it. And the whole idea of letting go and your own forgiving and everything else is very subjective, dependent on what the event was that caused you to feel in this way. Whether that would be childhood trauma, whether that would be any form of trauma. I was speaking like I was about to make a whole lot list of different types of traumas, but to be honest, there is a lot. Trauma in general. When you look at your trauma and you look at how much energy you spend exhibiting emotions into it, especially when you're down a line of, does this have an effect on me anymore? Do I actually live my life like this because of this reason, or can I go about changing the way that I approach scenarios based on the trauma that I've experienced? And some of you, or a lot of you who listen to these, whether you be new, whether you're tuning in for the first time, whether you've just come across this by happenstance, yeah, in reality, it is subjective, and I can't sit here and say it's definitive because it's not. You could listen to this and think he is not making any sense at all. What the fuck is this guy yapping about? And you'd be right. I often ask myself. This is why I don't listen. I try not to listen back through my previous episodes because the whole point of the podcast is to be organic. And in every episode, I will say this podcast is supposed to be organic. It's supposed to be coming from the thoughts. And some days there will be some periods where I'll be able to speak eloquently and quickly and know exactly what it is I'm going to say. And there will be other occasions where I get lost on my words and I start speaking really slowly and taking long gaps between my sentences because I'm trying to catch up with the thoughts that are coming to me in my head. So with that being said, it's often difficult to sit there and really ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I exhibiting this amount of it, or putting this amount of energy into something that is ultimately causing me harm? It's not as simple as that, and again, subjective and everything, and relativity is important. We'll go with an example. When you experience certain levels of childhood trauma, that stays with you well into your adulthood. Whether it be conscious, whether it be subconscious, whether it be periodically, there are certain attributes to your behavior that stems from childhood trauma. Now, it could mean that you will conduct yourself in a certain way, that you have such a routine when it comes to certain scenarios and certain situations where you find yourself going back through, they're almost like safety behaviors and coping mechanisms because you don't want to repeat a previous trauma in the situation that you're in. Oh, excuse me. Again, talking for prolonged periods of times make me start to yawn because I do end up speaking way too quickly, so I apologise if you often hear me pause to take a yawn. As I say, I do this organically. I don't edit these. I don't go back through and listen to them and think, oh, maybe I should add this in or add that in. It's very much in the moment, in the recording, is what I like to think. And I know that so far into this episode, I haven't really talked about how one would go about letting go. It's more of a case of something will happen where you sit there and think to yourself, do you know what, maybe I shouldn't hold so much anger anymore. Maybe I should make this necessary steps to start to move on, start to forgive. Never forget, when you let go of these emotions and let go of what's hindering your positive emotional journey as you go into your healing, it allows you to start to think about other things. It allows you to start focusing on other aspects of your life, other aspects of your work, other aspects of your social dynamics, to a point where you don't feel so clouded by the negative emotions that realistically are the things that are holding you back. Are these negative emotions necessary? Yes, of course they are, because it's how you process your grief, your trauma, anything. But it also helps that you keep that in the back of your mind and you go, I'm not going to allow myself to become this angry or feel this hurt or damaged again. But it is there purely as like an insider piece of knowledge that you already know what to do in a certain situation where you know that you're going to exhibit certain behaviors that keep you safe, keep you comfortable. But when you're doing them, and it's through no fault of anyone's own, when you're doing them unnecessarily, it creates that tension between yourself and the situation you're in and inhibits your ability to go into this situation with an open mind. Every situation, everything that you come across in life is unique. It's a unique opportunity to reconcile with. Once you've been able to reconcile with that and you can task yourself with how I'm going to manage each situation without the need for these safety behaviors, it starts to become a lot more clearer as to how you approach things. Because if you learn to forgive and you learn to let go, it's a massive thing that holds you back is that energy that you spend into retaining the negativity towards certain scenarios when realistically your progress can be inhibited by your own emotion. Follow the heart, not the mind. Follow what the heart wants. The heart, the brain may be the thing that is controlling your every move, but your heart is where your emotion comes from. It comes from that. I mean, scientifically wise, no, but in retrospect, I think you understand where I'm getting at. Your mind makes all your conscious decisions. Is where your logic and reason resides. Your heart is where your emotions reside, and your thoughts, not thoughts, your feelings towards. And when you can use those feelings to operate in such a way that often ends up being more beneficial than anything else, it allows you to move on, allows you more time to heal. Never forget, never forget, never forget where you came from. Regardless of where you came from, regardless of what walk of life you've had, never ever forget it. It's the one thing that your conscious or your subconscious will always keep you going no matter what. So, if you allow yourself to just look inwards and see what kind of energies are you exhibiting, what kind of energies are you repressing, and then look at it and go, I don't want to exhibit all this energy anymore. I want to use my energy for something else, for something a lot more productive. That is when you crack a code and realize maybe it isn't all that bad anymore. Maybe I can come out of the dark into the light and move on and progress and heal. And everyone's journey is different. It's not a straightaway thing. Some people takes years to reach the conclusion of, okay, I spent way too much time being a certain way and I don't want to be this certain way anymore. I want to rebuild, or I want to build, or I want to evolve. It's not easy by any means. It's not. But when you can do that is when you can go a long way. And again, I apologize if a lot of this is a little bit of a verbal diarrhea. I wanted to get an episode out for you guys because I know that I haven't been uploading as regularly as I should be. And I do plan to change that. It's just I have a lot of things on my plate that I have to attend to before I do this. This annoyingly for me is a hobby. But I will make more of a conscious effort to keep the ball rolling, to keep the uploads coming across all aspects of the channel, including, I do want to talk about music more. I want to do football videos. I want to do more podcasts like this with other people and bring people on. Obviously, the gaming videos I want to keep up with. I want to start streaming. Unfortunately, and it says so right in the title, it is going to take a little bit of time for that. So please bear with me. And I don't really want to speak much on the other aspects of the channel and the podcast. But at the same time, I do think it needs to be highlighted because I know that I have been lacking in terms of my uploads, especially for the podcast. But with all that being said, remember, towards improving mentally every day takes time. And I will try and see you guys very, very soon.